Good afternoon and welcome back to Let's Talk. And today I'm on the watch again because every time this comes up I'm going to bring it out and call me cynical or whatever it is. Not much point in being a conservative watchdog if you're not watching for this mismanagement. As you most recently heard, this is the fourth time in 1 year that Liberals have got caught with their hand in the cookie jar and have agreed to pay it back because they know it's wrong. And they think that's acceptable, and it's just not. Now, as you heard, $1.1 million was released by Justin Trudeau and signed off for moving employees from different parts of Canada to Ottawa. Now, the one that caught my mind was his two top staffers. Now, these two top staffers received over $200,000 to move from Toronto to Ontario. Now, the two people that did that were his Chief of Staff, Kathy Telford, and his Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Gerald Butt, who after they got caught said, yeah, we will pay back some of the money. Both these people have lived off big, cushy government jobs most of their life. Gerald Butt went on to say that he reviewed his expenses and believes that he shouldn't take advantage of some of them, but did go on to blame the previous governments. We just pay this man more than 95% of Canadians make for his expertise and his guidance. And he can't figure out that this doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money on moving expenses. He's dangerous. He's been in political jobs all his life. He has no appreciation for money. And he's had too many of these issues pop up in this government so far. $45,000 will be repaid of over $200,000. Now folks, I don't know about you, but $160,000 to $180,000 for two people to move from Ontario to Ottawa is still not acceptable. It's reflective of the mentality of these bureaucrats and politicians who have had their hands in the cookie jar way too long. They're limousine liberals and lavish lefties of this Prime Minister, who said that he's going to look into this issue. Yeah, right. The Prime Minister himself, a year ago, stood there and chastised Harper because he took the Canadian Jet to the Calgary hockey game to cut the ribbon after the renovations of the Saddledome. And Trudeau stood there and shamed him with the rest of the Liberals, saying that this was more personal than it was Canadians' representation, so therefore he shouldn't have taken that jet. He then gets elected. This man who is going to look into this gets elected and takes the same Canadian jet with his in-laws, his two nannies, and his family and flies to St. Lucia for 2 weeks. Then when he got back and submitted his expenses, he tried to delete those names and it was picked up. And he apologized and agreed to pay some of it back. That doesn't make what he did right. That's no different than somebody going into a bank and stealing $100,000, getting caught out in the front yard and saying, oh, I'll pay it back so nothing should happen to me. The fact of the matter is, I can't trust this Prime Minister to look into things. This Prime Minister hired two nannies. Not one, but two nannies. And by the way, no other Prime Minister did that. I had a friend of mine say, well, he should be able to do that because he's the Prime Minister. No, he shouldn't. We pay this man an exorbitant salary. We give him a house to live in. We give him food expenses, and we give him an expense account in his transportation. Surely to God, he can manage to pay child care for his own children. Why should he have more than other Canadians? Anybody that thinks that Trudeau and his wife deserve to be treated off taxpayers' dollars better than you or your wife are part of the problem. This isn't progressive. It's going backwards. We fought to get rid of this pomp and pageantry so that we didn't have to have people starving while our public officials live lavish lifestyles. It's ridiculous, and it has to stop. Now, This Prime Minister decides that after being a day late, decides is he going to show up in the government. Now after all this waste and all this money spent and all this money he's given away around the world, he addressed two key issues. The first issue being the carbon tax, which by the way, he promised he would leave up to the provinces, but now he needs the money because he's doing nothing for the economy, our deficits are growing, and we're getting in financial trouble. So, here it comes, the carbon tax. You're going to pay for it. Because this is going to affect your power and anything that has to do with large amounts of use of power. They're going to be taxed on it. That's going to come directly back to us. So as far as charging more taxes and giving money away to everybody, he's online. Now the pipeline, which is one of the things right across this country, 170 states or municipalities approved, he has decided and said openly on Power and Politics that unless the First Nations, the environmentalists, and everybody is on board, he is prepared to say no and look for other avenues for economic development. Now this is ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. This man has decided that all that he can do is take, give away, and spend. But he can't do nothing to ensure that we are going to have money in the bank at the end of his agenda. We cannot do the same thing that our neighbors did and drive ourselves deeply into debt. We have got to start working on real issues that are going to help Canadians move forward. And the one thing he's got to do is he has got to stop wasting our money. Now, there was an article come out in the Globe and Mail the other day, and they summarized it up just so perfectly. And what it basically said was, for the first time, the two top unelected officials of the Trudeau government had their opportunity to take advantage of the taxpayers, and they did it as far as they could push it. This is wrong. It's got to be addressed, and it's got to be stopped. There's no way in the world that any of us could get away with doing that, apologizing and being repaying it without some sort of consequence. So if this is the type of people that he has hired to advise him and steer us forward, I'm scared for that, and so should you be. So you get a hold of your MPs and your MLAs and tell them, the government has got to be responsible with our money. You're asking us to be responsible, and the government should be responsible. Thank you very much. My name is Mike Daly, and I will see you next time on Let's Talk.